Welcome to Fredericksburg Mission, a podcast talking all things mental health and wellness in the Burgh. Brought to you by...
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.
Welcome to Fredericksburg Mission. My name is Angela Rivers, and today I am sitting with Barbara Barlow, the Executive Director of Mental Health America Fredericksburg, also known as MHAF. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to bring you on. This podcast is based on mental health awareness, and you're obviously the perfect fit for this. So I'm really excited to let the community know what you all do so people can take advantage of your services.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So let's kick off this podcast by letting the listeners know what the mission and the vision is of Mental Health America.
Mental Health America Fredericksburg improves people's mental health and wellness through education, advocacy, and support services.
Yeah, and how does it do that?
Well, I could spend a long time talking about all the things we do.
That's what this is for.
But let's start with our top three programs that we're offering right now. And first, I would say Helpline. Helpline fills a gap in our community. A lot of people don't realize across Planning District 16, which is where we operate and provide services. And those are, for people who don't know, PD 16. Mm-hmm. It's the city of Fredericksburg, the counties of Caroline, King George, Spotsylvania, and Stafford. Okay. All right. And so within our area, most health providers that offer mental health services are not accepting new clients.
Yeah.
So
especially now with the pandemic and everybody's looking for services.
Well, there is an uptick in services dramatically during the pandemic. But even before, it was still an issue here. Mm-hmm. So when somebody reaches that tipping point and they realize, I want to get help, how many no's are they going to hear before they give up?
Yeah.
So is it 5? Is it 10, 20? So the week ago, I spoke to a woman who, after 32 calls, trying to make an appointment for her daughter who's being released from emergency placement. She couldn't find anyone.
That's terrible.
And it is terrible.
That's so terrible.
And, and obviously mom was beside herself.
Yeah.
And obviously mom's not going to give up.
Right. No,
even at 32 calls.
No,
but finally somebody gave her our phone number. Mm-hmm. And what we do is stay in touch with providers. So we know the health insurance that they are accepting, the services they're providing, and whether they're accepting new clients. So we were able to give her a recommendation, and she had an appointment the next day.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And, so there's so many stories like that. Mm-hmm. The first responder who called and said, I can't move forward. I know I have PTSD. And I need help.
Yeah.
And so we could give him people or providers that could help him, and he could make the call himself. So we're not a crisis line. We're not talking to people in the throes of a mental health emergency, but we are the ones that can connect them to the resources in the community that they can then follow up and get the help that they need. So that's a critical gap. You'll hear me talk about gaps a lot, because Mental Health America has always looked for the gaps in the community for mental health services and then created unique programs to fill those gaps. So the next one is suicide prevention education, which is really focused on teens. So middle schoolers and high schoolers. We used evidence-based practices, which is another benefit of being an affiliate of Mental Health America. So we have a lot of support connections and services and education materials that we can use. But then we partner with schools across PD16, and we work with social workers and counselors in the schools to present the evidence-based program that's really introducing teens to the concept that it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's okay to talk and reach out and be educated also about the signs of suicide ideation, and so that they can get help for themselves or they can help their friends get help. So peer-to-peer support. So we have that program. And additionally, we have the Senior Visitors Program, which has been in existence longer than either of those two programs. It goes back decades. And what we do is we match volunteers with seniors who are experiencing isolation, or loneliness. So those two things are distinctly different. But the volunteers spend time with their seniors. Some of these matches go back 20 years.
Wow.
So,
Well, Mental Health America of Fredericksburg is the longest standing nonprofit in the area. Is that correct?
well, if you're talking about a charitable nonprofit that's been in continuous existence for that period of time, because I was at a meeting of a local group that was a nonprofit, not a charitable nonprofit, an association, and they were 10 years in existence, longer than us. So I was educated, but I need to qualify that it's a charitable organization, but that's true. And a lot of people don't realize that they are enjoying and benefiting from services that Mental Health America Fredericksburg helped put into place decades ago. Back in the 1950s is when we started. For example, those people who shop at the Goodwill, who benefit from their job placement program or any of their other services, Mental Health America Fredericksburg was one of the founding members that started the Goodwill.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So, and there's a lot of programs that people are benefiting from that we were there when it got started. But because our model is to look for gaps in community services and then meet those needs and then find a way that that program is sustainable, often means that we back away and move on to the next project and leave that program or that organization in the hands of somebody that's going to build it even further, because we're about building community resources. So sometimes we're the silent partner that a lot of people don't realize how involved we've been in the community all these years. They tend to focus on our current programs. But it is exciting to talk about, or have the opportunity to talk about our long history in the community.
Definitely. And this is, when you talk about gaps, I mean, that's why I started this podcast, because coming from Northern Virginia, you don't always hear, or at least when I started in Northern Virginia, I didn't hear of mental health services. And I have, I'm sure I was sick for a long time. So I had to take some services to help get over what I went through. And when I came here, I wanted to continue services, but I didn't know about them. And a lot of people are like me. They don't know of services we offer. They assume that Fredericksburg doesn't have them, that they have to go to Richmond or they have to go to Northern Virginia. But Fredericksburg has so many great services. And so I want to let the community know all the different things through this podcast, such as Mental Health America and all the things you bring.
Well, and thank you for that. And I'm glad you said we, because a lot of people don't realize how engaged you are in the community. And you're on my board.
I am. I was trying to be a silent board partner today. But thank you. Yeah, it's a great mission.
Well, and I get excited because even our board is completely committed, like yourself, but you're not alone in that commitment.
Right.
And I think we have the best board of directors.
We're trying.
In Fredericksburg. For example, our annual campaign, Our Walk, the board is actively engaged in putting that on, and they enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So there's not that many boards that actually the board members put in the volunteer hours, but it's a passion for all of us.
It is.
So.
And there's people from all walks of life on the board, which is lovely. So it gives a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then you're fairly new to the organization. So what made you want to come work for Mental Health America? I mean, we are so blessed to have you. But
and I'm no longer on probation. I made my 90 days and I was a keeper.
We weren't getting rid of you, so.
Well, for the past, I have a business that I haven't shut down yet, but I don't have time to do it.
We don't know about this.
Yes. It's consulting business.
Okay.
So, and I spent most of my time working with nonprofits outside of Fredericksburg, helping them with improving capacities for systems changes, governance alignment, so that they can have improved outcomes and financial oversight.
Okay.
But at some point, I don't know if it was the pandemic. I don't know if it was just getting older, but you sit back and you're like, well, what have I built up in my own community? Yeah. And I felt very disconnected from my own community because I was working up and down the East Coast.
Wow.
But very rarely did I have the opportunity to work with a nonprofit here. And I just decided I wanted to, for the next 10 years, and then I'll retire. But
nope.
I wanted to build up the capacity within my local community. Yeah. And I'm thrilled that it's Mental Health America that I landed and honored to be the new executive director. Because I was always engaged and knew of the history of Mental Health America based on some of the other work that I've done. I've been on the board of directors of the local CSB, the Community Services Board, which, by the way, Mental Health America helped start. They were part of the partners that started that here. And then a gubernatorial appointment for the Board of People with Disabilities. So I've always been an advocate and active in the realm of disability rights. Yeah. And so obviously I was aware of the work that we do here. I can say we now instead of you. So I was thrilled to be selected and plant my feet in my local community with this organization. So for me, it's just the synergy of everything coming together.
It's a great fit. And the fact that you did consulting, really can help make Mental Health America Fredericksburg what it is, or what it will be. What do you see? How do you see it changing or evolving in the next 5 years?
Well, the other thing that I bring to the table is when I realized as a consultant, I wanted to focus on nonprofits and the nonprofit sector. I did get a graduate degree in nonprofit management.
Very neat.
So
I didn't even know that existed.
It does at the University of Richmond, my alma mater.
Oh,
so yeah. And because I didn't, if people are going to pay you to do a job, and you really want to do the best job and what's best for that organization, I think you have to bring more to the table than just your personal experience. Your world needs to be much bigger than that. Yeah. And so I see lifelong learning as a way of expanding your world and looking through situations and organizations through different lenses. And I think I bring that also to the table, as well as a knowledge of best practices. A lot of people think that the nonprofit sector somehow is less complex than say, a small business startup or the for-profit sector. And in actuality, it's actually more complex.
Yeah.
So here in the state of Virginia, you start out as a corporation. And so you have all the laws and regulations that are imposed on a corporation. And that's why we have boards. But then on top of that, when you apply for your nonprofit status, your charitable status 501c3, there's a whole nother layer of regulations and obligations. And so there's a lot more that you have to know and do, not less. So I think having that broader picture and understanding and the experience of working as a consultant, I'd like to think that it's one of the reasons I got hired. And also, I focus on sustainability. So Mental Health America, Fredericksburg, has been around since the 50s. And I want to position us so that, you know, the future is bright going for decades more. So I see this critical juncture in where we're heading. But we're just starting because I've only been here 90 days. But we're on this journey together, right?
Yeah. But I mean, people need the services, you know, and especially now from the pandemic. Have you seen more people calling into the helpline?
Oh, that's a really great question. And it will show or provide an example of how we're evolving and making changes.
Yeah.
What I see as a need is to remove the siloing of the different services and actually improve or build on existing collaborations with other nonprofits and other organizations. So when I started, I noticed and had been told that our helpline that I mentioned earlier was receiving crisis calls. And so there was some discussion about whether our staff that are answering those calls should be learning about managing crisis calls or people that are in crisis. And fortunately, the CSB has excellent resources where they have their emergency call center and so we partnered with them and they did a training for us. So now people that call in, and if it is a crisis call, we have the procedures in place to partner because we're partnering with the CSB, that we can hand those calls over to them. So, and what a lot of people don't realize, that even the National Suicide Hotline, if it's a critical call, they'll refer it locally to our CSB.
That's nice, because people, when they hear of helpline, they think of crisis.
They do.
Yeah.
But we are, before the pandemic, staff told me that they might have gotten one call a year.
Really?
But since I've been here, it's been at least a call a week.
Wow.
So
that's good. You're making a difference.
Well, the partnership with the CSB, and as a nonprofit working in this arena with mental health, I think we're stronger if we aren't seen as competing with each other, but we're supporting one another.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, and another example of that would be last week I met with Pat, the executive director of Healthy Generations. I had to think because they changed their name.
Oh, did they rebrand from the pandemic or?
No, before, but I've been around Fredericksburg forever, and I think of
their old name. Yeah,
their own. And actually, I remember Mary Washington as being a college, not the University of. So, so with our seniors program, we did notice that a lot of our volunteers are now being utilized to take seniors to doctor's appointments, which they need.
Yeah.
The CAP system here is not as reliable as it could be for doctor's appointments. And not every senior is going to be using an Uber. So there's certain barriers. Yeah. So, but that doesn't provide the interventions that our program was set up to do and provide that quality interaction, the socialization that people need to negate the loneliness or the feeling of isolation.
Yeah.
But then talking to Pat, they offer free rides to seniors
That's great.
who need to, and all you seniors, to get to doctor's appointments. So when we start talking to one another, and this is what I'm so excited about, and the future of Mental Health America, because it is our mission to fill those gaps. But the greatest gap in Fredericksburg might also be the lack of collaboration, so that we have an integrated network that the providers and the nonprofits are working to seamlessly move people through the different services that they need and make those connections instead of everything being siloed. So if I had a vision, I think that would be a long-term benefit to the community that Mental Health America can bring to the community.
Incredible.
So, and we have great people. And I haven't talked to any nonprofit that doesn't want to have or doesn't share that same goal. It's just a matter of how do we make that happen?
Right. You need someone
and
to
we're
kick
starting
it
that
off.
journey now.
Yeah.
So
that'd be great. I mean, Fredericksburg is so family oriented. I mean, businesses help other businesses way more than I've ever seen in any other community. And so it would be amazing if that could happen for mental health services as well.
So we're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying. We have a vision now.
Yeah.
So
That would be, seriously incredible. Well, sign me up to help with that.
you already are.
I know, but a little harder. Do you practice your own, do you balance life? Do you practice self-care? Like, how do you cope with mental health yourself?
That's a great question. I would tell you, as the older I get, the number one is enough sleep.
Yeah. It's so hard, though.
It is hard. Particularly the older I get, the more sleep I need. When I was in my 20s, I don't know. Maybe my recollection of my 20s, 4 hours a night was enough.
It was plenty.
But maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
But now I need a solid 8, even 10.
Yeah.
And then creating the permission to do that is important. But also, I've recognized from people that are close to me, usually people in my family that are younger, and learning from them the importance of transparency and communicating with people that are close to you, that you trust, of where you are, what you're struggling with, and what you need.
Yeah.
So, so I have a story to share, and I don't know.
Share it. Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So, somebody in my family who struggles with clinical depression, ADHD, and they had tried to attempt suicide. So, and watching them through their journey and their success, very moved with how they were more transparent and allowed people to help them. And that was brought home during the pandemic because they started struggling again, but they had built this wonderful network of people that knew who they were authentically and cared enough to be proactive and get ahead of what they perceive might be struggles, being isolated. And one day at our door showed up a switch for Animal Crossing.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, what's this? And so the friends and people that love them planned on doing Animal Crossing, where you could have a party on someone's island and they would listen to each other on their cell phone so they could talk to each other while they were sharing the same experience. But they loved them enough that they were proactive in thinking, okay, there's going to be a hard time ahead, because they were already struggling and their routine was disruptive, and all the support systems were kind of ripped away very dramatically. And they just filled the gap, and they wouldn't have known that need would be there and have the opportunity to be proactive except for the transparency, building a life of sharing with people authentically who you are, and not being embarrassed,
Right.
and just saying, this defines me as a person. It's part of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I don't know, it was in a very impactful moment to me where I realized it gave legs, and it made it very tangible when you talk about removing the stigma, that there are so many positive outcomes for doing that. And so that's something everybody I found, whether it's our board of directors, whether it's our staff, whether it's our volunteers, everybody has their own story, just like the one I shared with you, that tipping point where they recognized, mental health is something everyone has. 5 out of 5 people have mental health.
Yeah.
So, and we're all on a continuum, and we just need to be more nurturing and supportive so that people can authentically share who they are and not feel that there's something wrong.
Yeah. And it's so brave that they were transparent. People oftentimes are ashamed of who they are or things they feel, or feel they're going to be judged by somebody for whatever it is. And so that was very brave, and it was great to have that support.
Well, and I find the younger people are braver.
I think so.
And just if you're talking authenticity in who you are, and surrounding yourself with people that are accepting of that, and nurturing and respectful. And so that's the reputation I want Mental Health America Fredericksburg to have in the Fredericksburg area.
Yeah.
So as we build and evolve and change, into the next decade and go forward. So
yeah, I wish I had known about it, when I moved here, to learn about services and whatnot. I didn't know. And so I love being on the board, and I love telling people about what Mental Health America is, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
So, me too.
Right.
Teamwork.
Yes. So if someone was struggling with their own personal challenges, what you just said is a great inspirational thought, but do you have any others that you might want to share with the listeners?
Well, I would say sharing is the first small, even if it's a small step. But and even if it's just sharing with yourself, putting it down in writing, some small progress. So
no matter how big or small.
Right. And to be kind to yourself.
Which is so hard. People aren't kind to themselves.
They aren't.
No,
really. We
not.
set lofty goals.
They're kind to everybody else, but not themselves.
So.
Yeah.
And so create space for mistakes or missteps, or, your journey is long. And there's lots, I can't say there's lots of time for all of us, but just a small step.
Yeah, lovely. So I asked this question to everyone that comes here to do the podcast. At UMFS, we think of our families, we think of our staff, we think of our children as being unwavering champions. How do you think that you are an unwavering champion in the community?
Dun,
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. And you shared the language unwavering champion. And the first place it landed for me was I felt intimidated.
Oh.
I did. And
Is that transparency, you know?
I guess it is. But it's because unwavering to me, and it's only my journey, my perspective, seems so rigid and determined, and taking a great deal of determination, focus, and narrowly focused on something and being a champion. I see myself as the person behind the scenes that are encouraging others to excel to their potential. So this is the visualization that I had when I was trying to unpack that. And I thought of people in history that are my champions, that I learn from, that I admire. And then I thought about their whole lives being on film. And then those moments that they are unwavering champions, you could splice that out and have this like newsreel of one famous speech, I have a dream, or Gandhi with just nonviolent advocacy, things like that. So people in my life, and I could go through a long list of people, and I realized those moments that we cling to, that we think of as defining moments that made them champions, could fill a newsreel, but the bulk of their life would still be on the cutting room floor. And so when you're living, so you're balancing those moments of where you're excelling to your potential, that you're most impactful, but also with the bulk of the time where it's just trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
Where you stumble, you fall, you make mistakes. Sometimes you're even unkind. And so I would share that I'm sorry is in my wheelhouse. And so if I could change unwavering to something that could encompass the larger experience, then I might see myself more of as being a champion. But I think it gets back to, if you're going to be authentic, if you're going to be transparent, and if you're going to be kind to yourself, then you have to revel in what you've learned from the missteps.
Yeah, you have to, especially in mental health.
Yes.
Yeah, but you are a champion. I mean, where would Mental Health America Fredericksburg be without you? You know, where would the vision be without you? Unwavering to us is someone that goes above and beyond, and you've already proven that since you stepped into the role. And so, to me, you are certainly an unwavering champion.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Well, thank you. No pressure now.
No, none.
But, I mean, going above and beyond, I don't know. I think I'm always surrounded by people that I see them doing that. So they don't want to just, particularly at Mental Health America with the staff that we're building now and the direction we're heading, they don't want to just come in and collect a paycheck. So they want to, you know, we want to establish goals, and we know that we're making progress to achieving those goals, but really for the benefit of the community. And I guess talking with you right now, I would think the champions, for me at least, are those people that are throwing themselves into something bigger than themselves.
The ones
which
suffering.
Is what we try to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to battle mental illness. It's tough, you know, for anybody. So it's nice to have resources a phone number to call, a place to feel at home with if they need somebody.
So, and we want to be that home
Mm-hmm.
for people
Exactly.
and other organizations, not just individuals. So, and build that sense of community across our community.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think it's going to be glorious
I
to
think
see
so.
how it grows.
Well, I couldn't ask to be in a better community for that
Yeah,
than
certainly.
Fredericksburg,
Certainly.
Greater Fredericksburg. That includes Stafford,
It
Spotsylvania,
does.
Caroline,
All
King
of the
George,
above, I
all
know.
of the above.
I know people will say to me, even this weekend at the Pride event, they asked, where, oh, you're only in Fredericksburg. I said, well, no, we're also in X and X and X and X, but people just assume. So it's
Mhm.
nice to know that it's a larger, broader location.
I guess we should start saying region,
It's true. It's true.
so they know that it's
Mhm.
just not the city of Fredericksburg.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if the listeners want to find out where Mental Health America is, where can they find you?
Go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
Mental Health America Fredericksburg. Our phone number's there. Our email addresses are there. Programs, you can fill out an application if you want to volunteer for the senior program. We need volunteers, or if you're a senior who would like to sign up, that's there too. Also, our Facebook page. I'm actually the person who's responding to your, what is it, the Facebook Messenger?
Uh-huh,
Yeah. And you're on Instagram. You
Mhm.
handle our Instagram. So just we're trying to diversify the platforms that people
Yeah.
can reach out. So, yeah,
Wherever anybody's comfortable. Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
we're trying to
Certainly.
meet you where you are.
Well, Barbara, it was lovely to have you here. I'm really, really grateful to have you, and I'm certainly going to have you back on. Thank you very much for taking the time.
And thank you for everything you do.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. This is Angela Rivers with Fredericksburg Mission. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about becoming a foster parent, please visit www.umfs.org/foster. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you for joining us. I'm Angela Rivers with Fredericksburg Mission. Tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us again next week for our next episode.
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.